I am super thrilled to be introducing a new performance from Valencia James. First of all, Valencia is a Barbadian freelance performer, maker, and researcher interested in the intersection between dance, theater, technology, and activism. Valencia's work explores remote interdisciplinary collaboration with creative technologists and how emerging technologies like machine learning and computer vision might enhance creativity in her contemporary dance practice and vice versa. This research has resulted in a collaboratively built, novel, open source software toolkit that pushes the boundaries of live performance. In 2013, Valencia co founded the AI AM project, which explores the application of machine learning and artificial intelligence to dance. She was a 2020 Rapid Response Fellow at IB, where she co founded the Volumetric Performance Toolbox, a project that responds to the global pandemic by envisioning live online 3D dance performance as a new way for artists to connect to audiences from their living spaces using minimal equipment. Valencia was invited by Golan Levin to join the Spring 2021 Remote Residency for Open Source Software Art Tools at Carnegie Mellon University's Studio for Creative Inquiry. She's presented her work at TED times Danubia, TED times Göteborg, the International Joint Conference on Artificial Intelligence in Buenos Aires, ISEA 2015, and most recently SIGGRAPH 2021, where this performance first was first debuted. The performance takes place in Mozilla Hubs. I'll be jumping off of your screen and joining the participants in the hub, but we will be streaming the performance live to you right now. And with that, just give us a few moments as we get set up, and we will start streaming in just a second. Thanks.
Okay, and it seems we have the go ahead. So I'd ask Sandrine, please take it away.
Greetings, everyone. Welcome. My name is Sandrine Mallory, and I'm pleased to welcome you to Sugar, a virtual performance where we will embark on a journey of remembrance and resilience to honor our ancestors. I will be your experience guide this afternoon. I have a humanoid avatar, and at this time, please click on this avatar and then hold the space bar while clicking on the plus button so you can turn my volume all the way up. So you can hear what I'm speaking, and the louder I will be for you, and the closer you be to me, the louder I will be for you. Sorry. Please note that Mozilla Hubs is an open source streaming platform, so the performance may vary across devices and internet bandwidth. So if you have any audio or visual issues, please simply refresh your browsers and this should remedy the problem. Throughout the show, we'll be changing scenes. When this happens, your screen will go dark. At that time, we invite you to take a deep breath in and out as you soften your gaze. Now, I'll pass you on to Valencia.
Hello, everyone. I'm Valencia James. I am just so thrilled to have you join us today. Yes, get closer to me if you need. If you're having trouble hearing me, feel free to get close. I just wanted to share a few words about what brought us here today. First of all, I just want to thank the organizers of the Gray Area Festival for having us. And this is a performance that is very dear to my heart. And that's because this time last year, we were all navigating the effects of the global pandemic. And then came the brutal murder of George Floyd. And that set our communities in anguish. And at this time, my coping mechanism became seeking a closer relationship to my ancestors. And this is the starting point of this piece that you're witnessing here today, Sugar. And this is a story of commemoration of the struggles and injustices of our ancestors, and also of their resilience and of our resilience and beauty, because that's what the pandemic really brought to light for me. So this is a story of remembrance, and it's a tribute to their struggles. Another thing that came about due to the pandemic was the whole project that makes this performance possible, and that's the Volumetric Performance Toolbox. And in July last year, I started a collaboration with the Spatial Interaction Lab Glowbox and creative technologist Sorb Louis through the IBEAM's Rapid Response Fellowship. And we were responding to the closures of theaters all around the globe. And my idea was, how can we, how can performers get into the computer and have performances in social virtual space that defies, the lockdowns that we were experiencing? How can we have liveness and feeling of togetherness, even though we're in our own respective homes? And that was the birth of the Volumetric Performance Toolbox and this performance that you'll experience today. And so what we've done has been harnessing 3D video technology and placing it in a low-cost, lightweight kit so that performers can create these performances from their living areas, from their living spaces, from their living room. I'm in my living room, you're in your living room, yet we are together in this virtual space. And so during this experience, we will explore, the injustices that our ancestors experienced, but also I will give a dance tribute, and you will see me dancing live in a lighter scan of the Annenberg Sugar Mill. And this is something that has been very pressing for me, and also very special, that I can imbue healing in a space where so much injustice happened. And so we're very grateful for our supporters, iBeam and the Studio for Creative Inquiry at Carnegie Mellon University. And also I'd like to especially acknowledge and thank my collaborators in creating this experience, Thomas Wester, Simon Bowes, Holly Newlands, Rin Vaselli, Sandrine Mallory, and Terry Ayana Wright for their generous work in making this happen, as well as everyone who supported this project in the past year. So thank you very much. And I'm very much looking forward to going on this journey with you. I'll pass it back to Sandrine, who will guide you along this experience. And I'll see you on the other side.
Thank you, Valencia. Now, before we embark on our journey, let me advise you that some of the scenes may contain sensitive content that may be triggering for some individuals. Just a warning. Remember also that the scenes will change, and when the screens go dark, take a deep breath in and out as you soften your gaze. Anuseo Zajnaglo Bako Tumiwa Lawe Lawe Anuseo Zajnaglo Bako Tumiwa Lawe Lawe Na la vilokaye Créole des changements. Darkness. 3 months of darkness. Shackles, moaning, and the smell of excrement, death, fear. We're terrified never to see home again.
Everybody get in line. Let's go.
Everybody up. Stand up. Now.
Seems like we've arrived. It's time to go up on deck. Come towards the center of the stairs, then using your W key, move up, forward, and up the stairs. This was the voyage that brought more than 10 million Africans from the continent to an unforgiving new world of brutality and anguish, all in the name of sugar, to fatten the pockets of Europeans and Africans participating in the slave trade. We've arrived on the Caribbean island of St. John. If you look around, you can see a sugar mill not too far from here. Hold down your mouse or your trackpad and scroll to look up, down, and all around. But we can't stay here for too long. We've got to get on shore to start the long walk into the Forest of Commemoration. It'll take all afternoon, so let's get going. Remember that I will guide you, so stay close to me to hear me. When your screen goes dark, simply relax your gaze, then inhale and exhale deeply. And we will meet again in the Forest of Commemoration. Welcome to the Forest of Commemoration. Please join me at the map of the island for a brief introduction. The Danish claimed the island in 1718, and by 1728, there were over 100 sugar mill plantations on this island. Right now, we are in the woods surrounding the Annaberg plantation. It was established in 1722 with a dungeon where rebellious slaves were punished and a guardhouse to ensure no slaves escaped. This was the way of the sugar plantation system, which had become the main industry of the Caribbean. By 1750, it made up a fifth of all European imports. This high demand for sugar led to the barbaric treatment of a stolen people. Brefu was one of these people, a royal taken from the Akwamu village and enslaved on a plantation at Coral Bay on the eastern coast of this island. Take a walk now through the forest to learn what she and many others experienced in the name of sugar. Brefu, like so many others, could no longer tolerate the intense forced labor. In 1733, she empowered over 150 slaves to stand up for their rights, rebel against their masters, and take over the island. Brefu's rebels took over a fort with just knives, then signaled with cannon fire that it was time to kill their masters. For nearly a year, the Akwamu people, with Brefu as their leader, maintained control of most of St. John. The Danes reclaimed the island with the help of the French. However, My apologies. Let us try that again. Brefu, like so many others, could no longer tolerate the intense forced labor. In 1733, she empowered over 150 slaves to stand up for their rights, rebel against their masters, and take over the island. Brefu's rebels took a fort with just knives, then signaled with cannon fire that it was time to kill their masters. For nearly a year, the Akwamu people, with Brefu as their leader, maintained control of most of St. John. The Danes reclaimed the island with the help of the French. However, they never got Brefu. She and 23 other Akwamu rebels ceremoniously committed suicide to avoid being captured. The resistance, the rebellion, the spark she's created continued on this island and all over the Caribbean. Each act of resistance inspired more and more freedom fighters. Amelia in Guyana, Dessalines in Haiti, Bassa in Barbados, and many, many more. We are who we are today because of them. Look out now, over your right, over there, just past the edge of the forest. Do you see the sugar mill in the distance? Imagine Brefu at its entryway with the rebels having fought for freedom. The sugar mill itself then becomes a symbol of their rebellion. We honor through ritual. We lift up their names. We memorialize our ancestors' struggles and the wealth it created in all that is sugar. Come, let's walk out together now to the edge of the forest towards the sugar mill. And then please take a moment of silence for those who came before us.
We got sugar in we blood, sugar in the blood. My great-grandmother had to leave her young daughter in the care of another to cut cane with her sons in Berbice, Guyana, sugar in the blood. My uncle was a manager at many factories, Rolls Hall in Guyana, Appleton in Jamaica, sugar in the blood. My mother and her cousins learned to swim in the trenches of cane fields. Stealing cane was part of the everyday mischief. We got sugar in we blood, sugar in the blood, sugar in the blood, sugar in the blood. Sugar in the blood, sugar in the blood, sugar in the blood. Sugar in the blood, sugar in the blood, sugar in the blood.
Our ancestors have ascended. Our ancestors have ascended. Can you see them? Our ancestors have ascended. Can you see them in the stars? Our ancestors have ascended. Our ancestors have ascended. Can you see yourselves in the stars? We are them. Our ancestors have ascended. Can you see them in the stars? Can you see yourselves in the stars? We are them, extending into our plane, and they are us, reflecting in theirs.
Thank you so much, everyone. That is the end of our presentation. We'll be continuing for our Q&A in the link you see in the chat in video lounges. This is the Gray Areas video lounge, and we will continue with a live Q&A with our creative team and Gray Area Festival curator Wade Wallerstein. So please join us there.
Who are here with us to talk about the experience that everyone just witnessed. I'm here with Simon, Marin, Thomas, Sandrine, and Valencia, and I'm just so thrilled. That was such a moving experience, from the movement on the ship to replicate the experience of slaves passing the Middle Passage, to your dance performance, which was both somber and joyful, and really captured so much emotion and feeling. Thank you so much. Valencia, do you want to introduce yourself a little bit and perhaps introduce your team to the audience?
Yes, thank you so much, Wade, for having us. I'm Valencia James. I am a performer and I work with technology, and I'm very interested in how emerging technologies can push creativity for dance performance and how we can tell stories that don't usually get told. And I'm very excited and happy and so grateful to my amazing collaborators here. We have Thomas Wester of Glowbox, who we started this project last year, figuring out how do we create liveness in social virtual platforms. And there's Marin Vaselli, who's an amazing 3D artist and designer. Sandrine Mallory, who's a multidisciplinary artist. She was guiding us through the experience, and Simon Bowes, who's the guy behind the scenes who just makes sure the stream works. And also we designed a educational component of the project Volumetric Performance Toolbox, where we have invited artists to learn how to create their own volumetric performances. And Holly Newland, I think, is in video lounges who's a technical artist who helped us get all the point clouds and together. So it's been really amazing. Thank you so much, and so happy that y'all could join me.
Wow. Yeah. No, it was really, it was a really beautiful and coordinated performance. You guys are a well-oiled machine. Um, you just mentioned the volumetric performance toolbox, and I haven't talked about that too much. As my from my understanding, this is an open way that artists can use the same technology that you used in order to beam yourself into the Mozilla Hub space that we just experienced. Can you tell us a little bit about how the performance works technically, and how you were able to produce it?
I would like to pass that to Thomas, but I will show my setup as well. So while Thomas, you take it away, I'll just show you the kit that we designed together with Sorb Louis and Thomas and the team at Glowbox.
Yeah, we were interested in uh, bringing people into a virtual space and then also showing the performer volumetrically. So we created a small kit that uses a Raspberry Pi and an Intel RealSense camera to create this point cloud, a live point cloud stream of the performer, and then we placed that in hubs, Mozilla Hubs, which is using WebGL or Web3D technology to kind of render that all together. So it's using pretty standard video streaming technology. What we're doing is we're streaming both the RGB and then also the depth map basically together as a stacked video, and then we're using a shader in hubs to unpack that back into a volumetric. So there's a lot of tech speak, but that's how it works.
It's so cool, and from my understanding, it's an extremely accessible technology, in the sense that it's low cost and relatively uh, not everybody has different abilities with technology. I have certainly have my own issues, but it's relatively straightforward to set up. If an artist wants to experiment with this toolbox, how can they get involved, or might they be able to use this tech in their own performances, or be able to access the toolbox, so to speak?
There's the default answer is all the code is up on GitHub, but that doesn't necessarily make it easy, and we're aware with that. We have the codes available there, and then we have a Medium page that kind of walks through the work that we did with the rapid response residency. So we have some documentation, but the best thing is to reach out to us to help us guide you through the process. The key thing is that the kit and what we were trying to do was create something that didn't require a laptop or very specific high-powered machine, which is hard to get to sometimes, and not everybody has access to. To create something that for under $300 you'd be able to put together and have this stream, and that's how we use Mozilla Hubs because it was an open platform that we could customize easily to allow for that.
Awesome. That's so cool. And I can't wait to dig into the code and see see for myself what I can cook up with. That I was really inspired by this. Um, just to shift focus a little bit, I want to talk to Sandrine about the experience of narrating this project and leading the audience through. There are so many really emotional, and violent, and honestly, painful subjects that you broach, of course, with the history of slavery and the sugar trade. How, as a narrator, do you approach welcoming people into this space and sharing this experience with different kinds of people? I imagine that to be a big task for anyone.
It's something that we discussed a lot in preparation and how to navigate the different rooms because each energy was a little bit different. We wanted to treat everything with care and make sure that we're attentive to all the emotions that are there. So, really, as a narrator, I really just tried to be a soothing voice and just be calm and just kind of a presence that you could anchor to in the midst of all the insanity that's happening around you or the information that might be hard to process. You always know that you can follow my voice and, I'll take you back, basically. So I felt like it was, as a narrator, as a guide, it was to anchor energetically.
Absolutely, and I think you did a wonderful job of that. You were super soothing, and I really enjoyed taking those moments in the transitions to take a breath and reset, and enter the next space with a clean palette. Um, you know, I'm I'm curious for for Sandrine and Valencia. You're sharing this story with people of all different races and identities, and what has it been like for you, and what kind of feedback have you gotten from sharing this experience with other people who don't have the same histories and the same experiences as you do? And what is that? And how does that experience of sharing this kind of impact the way that you feel about the performance overall?
It's been largely very positive. But we were doing quite a couple tests and inviting our colleagues and friends and family to enter the space as we were working out different scenes. And so one thing that did the really good feedback was that we need to let people know that this can be triggering, especially for people of African descent. Like it's a very difficult thing to come into, especially in an immersive, looking at web VR. Um, and so that's been trying to do it with care, has been, and also to honor and to be authentic with it as possible. You can't really portray every little fine detail because there's limitation to the platform, but how can we do it with care and authenticity? Sandrine, do you
Well,
want to
it's
add?
it's also navigating a balance, striking that emotional chord, but at the same time, providing the levity of the beautiful point cloud forest. There's that contrast that then gives you kind of like an ease back into a different world. So it's the point cloud also, I think, just visually, it was different experiences, so that it felt softer. After you've gone through some of the trauma, it becomes softer. So, but I've not experienced anything negative from people. The response has been positive, and the critiques that we got along the way, we incorporated them, we worked with them, and made sure that we were being very careful.
Absolutely. And in speaking of the aesthetic design of the Point Cloud Forest, Maria and I understand that you were instrumental in building this space. And I'd love to hear more about some of your aesthetic inspiration and how you put together this really what for lack of a better word, sacred space.
Yeah, well, as far as the point clouds go, that is a Holly thing. So maybe I add in the chat, or sorry, if they can add in the chat, or if they're listening in. But if so, then maybe they'll expand on that a little bit. But I can say, because I do know a little bit about what Holly did, and we did work really closely together. So basically, everything that's point cloud in the scenes, Holly placed there, and everything that's not, I built in the scene. So and then we collaborated heavily, of course, with Valencia, who is art directing this piece. So that's kind of how the 3D art came to be. But as far as the point cloud, it's actually really amazing. And I mean, Holly, add to this if you're listening and you're in the chat. But it's made from actual spatial data of the Annaberg sugar mill. So it's actually Holly actually was able to turn that spatial data into point cloud. And yeah, and then extract certain parts of it. Like there's a forest that's actually around the mill, and when you're in the forest scene, that's a real moment from that space. So I think that's honestly one of the most amazing things about this piece is the use of that spatial data, which I believe Valencia found and then Holly manipulated, and so that was just that. Yeah, it's really cool. And yeah, I think we definitely talked a lot about, went back and forth a lot about how we kind of incorporate this light point cloud spatial data with kind of the heaviness of 3D objects, and especially a lot of low poly objects, because it is an online platform and we're trying to keep speeds quick for internet and such. So I think it was a process for us to figure out how those things can work together, instead of kind of having a contrast, or how we can make that contrast look nice. So I think, we played around with that a lot. Like, oh, do we want objects in the forest? Do we want this in the forest? Or do we want these like floating images? Like, how do we create a museum? So yeah, all those things. And then I would say, yeah, actually, Terry Wright also is another artist who helped along the way. And she also worked on the Cosmos scene. Those illustrations were hers, which are really beautiful as well. And I like that scene a lot. It's really powerful to me because it's this space where you kind of reflect on the whole performance. So I think the immersiveness that like Terry and I created in there, with those illustrations, and then with Sandrine's voice. Yeah, so it's interesting. Like, I feel like, everything that we did visually and spatially is so dependent on also on the audio, and also on Valencia's performance. And so I feel like there's a really powerful, like, mesh going on there. We did have some really amazing feedback about the boat scene, the middle passage scene, which was a little, it's actually interesting because it's actually kind of the opposite of the question you're asking about, like, or how we were talking about if it's like too much for people, or how it is. It was actually just a boat, and we got some feedback that, like, wait, this isn't what was going on. Like, we would say, like, Sandrine's vocals describe the conditions of the slave ship, but we got some feedback that, like, we need to, like, make that more visceral and more real. And I think Valencia and I worked on that coming up to the festival. So that's a new addition to the piece. And I think, that is also a really powerful moment. So, yeah.
It's just such a sensory overload that completely resets you as you enter that first scene and you hear the crack of the whip. It sent a shiver down my spine. Absolutely. It's so, so powerful. I don't want to take too much time or be too long-winded about this, but I do have one more question for you, Valencia. Um, you know, this story is something that has, as you say, the sugar trade has shaped so much wealth in the world, particularly in the Western world, and was so extractive and damaging in so many different ways. And I was wondering if you could talk a little bit about the contemporary and modern day impact of the sugar trade, and kind of how this performance speaks to the current moment that we're living in.
Thank you for that question, Wade. One of the main like drives to create this piece has been that um, I found, like, in my experience, there is not enough like knowledge, like among my peers and among my colleagues, especially even in the theater world, around the real impacts of the transatlantic slave trade and the sugar trade on today's world. And so it was a point of a big frustration, because as a Black person, you just feel it, and you experience it every day. And there's a lot of trauma that I was holding, even ancestral trauma, that was coming out because of my work. And realizing, like, oh my goodness, it's not only in my head, it's real. And the fact that, first of all, so much wealth, like unimaginable wealth, was generated in the Caribbean. And also the legislation and the whole foundation of policing Black people was founded right there with legislation. It has made such an impact, and it stays with us, because a lot of legislation is still the same. That wealth is still in the hands of those people who traded with slaves, and it's not just the people who owned slaves. It was a huge banking establishment. It was a huge system, and that wealth is still in the hands of those heirs. And even people who are like the cousin of the Queen had property in Jamaica, in Barbados. I would encourage you to look at the work of Hilary Beckles and Queen Mother Dorothy Desir. She is a scholar from IT, and also they're talking about the legacy of this history is still very much here. And then we think of police brutality today and mass incarceration. It's just, and when you look at the history, you see it's just a continuation, it's a continuum. And if we can really grasp, people from all walks of life can grasp, it's not just the Black history, it's all of our history. If we can grasp that, I think it can help us to point us to what needs to change and how to create a system of justice and reparations. It needs to happen, because it's not going to happen if we keep the status quo. So yeah, I think if we can understand the history, we can understand a bit better how to shape the future.
Absolutely, and
Yeah.
it's such an important and cogent reminder that was just so meaningful to be rooted in such a sensory way. I was going through the performance today and just thinking about, wow, I wish that I had seen this as a kid in school when I was learning this history, and I was able to interact with it and really at least in a small way feel some of the emotions and the feelings that you're attempting to evoke in the audience. So thank you so much for that. And thank you so much for this, really prescient reminder of what's currently going on. This wealth is still there. And these are the protocols, these are the systems of control around us. This is exactly what we want to get into with the festival, and what we want to point out, because we can't change the protocol if we aren't fully cognizant of what it is. We have to know it, we have to feel it in order to make a change. Thank you all so
Thank
much.
Thank you. I just want to add also put out there that this project is also about artists really being able to create their own worlds. And so Simon Bose has done an amazing job with putting together a Medium page and documenting. We have resources available for anyone who wants to approach this type of way of creating and telling your stories. And we drop it in the chat, but I don't have it right here. It's Medium, or Simon. Medium Volumetric Performance Toolbox. So Simon, you can talk about that.
I'll
Yeah,
keep it brief.
that's awesome.
Some quick background on that is last winter, with support from iBeam, we, after doing our first pilot performance, we ran this as an educational program where, rather than work on that first performance we did, which is what you just saw, or a new version of it, we worked with other artists to build our own. So we developed these kits that cost under $300. It's a Raspberry Pi. It's a RealSense camera. We shipped them out to people, and then we did a series of totally remote workshops. Thomas and Holly and I are in Portland, Oregon. Valencia's in California, Marin's in California, Sandrine in California too. A lot of the artists were in New York, and all across the country. But we came together through Zoom, through hubs, and kind of figured out how to build a showcase of people building their own worlds and their own performances. So on that Medium page, we've posted quite a few, most of our the recordings of our Zoom sessions and the workshops we did. So there's technical walkthroughs. You can learn exactly how to use the kit. All the materials needed for one are available on there. There's still a question of how you access our servers, but that's why we say reach out to us and we'll help you get set up. But you can also learn about the why of the project. There's some interviews with other artists who are advisors. So it goes beyond just the technical and the how.
Wow, what an amazing resource for people, and what a brilliant mission. I encourage everyone in the audience to go and check out those resources, and experiment with this technology, and to keep thinking about these ideas. Watch the performance again. The recording will be up online, and really feel it, and these stories and these histories as we honor as we honor the history of the slave trade and of Black people in the Caribbean and throughout the Western world. Wow. That was so rich. Thank you so much to the whole team. And I think that is going to draw a close on the live stream portion of Gray Area Festival Day 1. Thanks everyone who came out. It was really great to chat with some of you guys in the chat. Now we'll be transitioning to our video lounge. Please come in. Join us. We'll be there hanging out, having conversation, and continuing to talk about some of these really important ideas. With that, this is Wade signing off. I will see everyone back here tomorrow at 5 p.m. Pacific time. Thanks so much.